everybody, and welcome to another episode of Blunders and Bothwellians, the Wounded Witch edition. This is the Tuesday Party Carnal Eclipse, episode 44, if you can believe it. Every time I say that and every time I can't. It's been over a year and a bit now, and they are making ridiculous amounts of progress, doing crazy, crazy things. We left off with them in the country of Risha, and they were after a shard that they located and found. However, it was in a dark black lake, the Great Black Lake in the Forest of Ibar, which is the Forest of Death in Risha. Now then, this was a problem because it was inhabited, the lake, by a ghostly amount of creatures, white, swan-like, humanoid creatures who did not take very kindly to their waters being disturbed. They attacked. A couple of members of the party fell, but were revived again, and they managed to collect the shard owing to some bravery from the gnome Apricity and some cunning acts of violence by Varric, who was hovering over, holding her up. They thought all was well, they had the piece of the shard, and they were ready to get going out of the Forest of Death and contact paladin the Angel to let him know they had found the shard. However, just before they could move off, they were surrounded by several high, important, noble elves. They are elves of the Council of Risha, the ones who lord over and rule all of Risha, and they live in sort of hibernation. Nobody is allowed to see them, nobody goes to the council unless they are in a great deal of trouble or going to be praised a great deal, so not many people. The council exists and hides and hangs out, as much as elves can hang out, on the island just off to the south coast of Risha, which is called May, the capital, May, which is a whole island which is only inhabited by the council and not many people go to. They are bamphed straight there and held in the council chamber, which is where they were interrogated about the item that they had found, the shard. Although it seems as though the Council of Risha do not necessarily know what the item is, however, they are concerned that an item of such great power has been taken, and they do not want it to fall into the wrong hands, and therefore they ask them to return it forthwith. When they had a little argument, and Hannibal, of course, started a little bit of an uproar, the council had enough of them and cast anti-gravity, or reverse gravity, one of the two, and they flipped on its head the part of the room that the companions were in, and they all got flipped onto their backs and hurled towards the ceiling, where they hit it with a thud, and one member of the party, no spoilers here, one member of the party may only have one hit point left. They were discussing what on earth they were going to do, because they of course still have the shard and they don't want to hand it over. However, before they could completely come to a decision, Vertharitas convinced them to hand it over to him, and upon taking the shard, he requested to his party members that they convince the council to stop attempting to kill them. And taking the shard with him, he bamphed and disappeared. The rest of the party aren't sure where, but he has in fact gone into the Astral Plane. He can remain there for 24 hours, so who knows what is going to occur. Well, let us go and find out. So, we are going to return to the party.
So,
hello!
Hi.
Hello.
I love that I return and there's like a picture of an angel ripping off their halo and smashing it. I have no context for this, but okay. So, welcome you guys, welcome. Most of the party are currently on the ceiling in the Council of Risha, having just shouted and asked for paladin the Angel to come and help them. However, we are going to start, if we may, with Vertharitas. Now, I have had some rum, and we've all had a bit of a day, so I am not going to be mean and ask you to come into the separate chat. I will have this chat so everyone else can listen, if you're alright with that. Are you guys okay to listen, as Vertharitas has a little bit of an adventure in the Astral Plane? Also, I'm loving the death is coming for you. Just keep those coming. I want to see how many of them there actually are.
Quite a lot, because South Park is a thing that exists.
This is true. Alrighty. So, in which case, we'll start with Vertharitas. So, Vertharitas, you have bamphed holding onto the shard, and you are currently in the Astral Plane. So, looking around you, the world is strange. It is a combination of light and dark. Swirling lights, things off in the distance that you can't quite see. As far as you're looking, you can't see any other creatures or living beings, but it doesn't strike you as a place that's dead either. Time is passing very strangely as well. You blink and it feels as if your eyes took forever to close, but when you open them, you see things moving around you quite quickly. Swirls of light and colour, balls of energy. A bit like if you were shown a video of the cosmos, things like that. Oh god, the South Park memes. Oh god. So, Vertharitas, you're hovering there. It's been, feels like maybe a few minutes. Is there anything you want to be thinking about or doing in your first few minutes of being in the Astral Plane?
Well, the first thing he'll do is he's going to cast a minor cure wounds on himself. So at level 1, and then he's going to try and contact help.
Okay. As you, are you going to vocally do this or sort of inside your head?
Sort of combination of both.
Okay.
Like those people that pray really loudly.
You realise to yourself, I could be obnoxiously loud here and there's no one to tell me off. You're sort of floating and drifting along as you are. As you call out, it's not that you don't get a response, it's that you feel like it's going to take a long time to get there. You're very far from the plane you were on that your god is associated with, and you feel warm. You don't feel a complete disconnect, but you're very far away, as if you were talking from one of those tin cans on a piece of string that connects from up the top of the stairs to the bottom so you can speak to each other, but it's a 10 million story house rather than a 2-story house. You do get a sort of warm feeling, and you've got your holy symbol, don't you?
Yep.
Yeah, that's like the necklace. Yeah, that, it glows a little warm, but you don't hear a response.
He'll frown a bit at that, because he was
Because
banking
that
on the
was your
fact
only plan and now we're fucked.
he was hoping he'd be able to get in touch.
Oh no.
What you do notice, Vertharitas, is that the shard in your hand is glowing and pulsing. Now, have you ever worn the goggles?
Not off the top of my head, no.
No, literally off the top of your head. Boom, boom. DM's had rum. DM has had rum. What you would be seeing now is essentially a really amped up version of everything Arissa, or Apricity, you've worn them as well, are currently still wearing them, I believe, actually. Thank you for that. Thank you. I'll be here all night. What essentially you're seeing is a bamped up version of that. And you start to understand what Arissa and Apricity were describing whenever they were wearing them, particularly Arissa, who would be pointing and saying, "Oh, essentially it's a huge cloud of glittering gold and silver dust." And it's sort of pulsing out from where you've got it, presumably still in your hand, having only just arrived.
Yep.
And it starts to glow, and the light gets bigger and bigger. The shard itself stays the same size in your hand. It's probably about the size of your fist. Well, no, smaller because you've probably got a bigger fist. Probably about the size of a human fist. So a little bigger, a little smaller than yours. And a light sort of emanates out from it, and it forms a shape. And it's not a shape you recognise. It's like a white gold sort of glow, and it stands and hovers. And again, you're sort of floating in the air here. And it's about maybe 7 or 8 feet in front of you, and it's emanating from the shard like a projection. And it stands in front of you. And you hear a voice. And it's not a voice you recognise, but it's warm, vaguely feminine. And it says, "Hello, Vertharitas. Tell me, what would you do with me once you've put all the pieces together again?"
Oh god.
Oh crap.
Yeah, that.
See, this is why it's more fun to not have you in your own private session.
So Vertharitas will be a bit surprised that he's being spoken to by what he's assuming is the shard.
Mm-hmm. As far as you can tell, yes.
And basically respond with what he feels
With what he feels what, sorry?
would be the honest truth for him, which is I would Well, from what I was told, you were a weapon that would be able to defend Mercer against the great evil that was supposed to be threatening to destroy our world. But you seem to be a little bit more than just... But if you are willing to help us fight for Mercer, then be basically bound by my own oaths to help you with that.
I am only the voice of the Aedar. I cannot decide what you do with me. You are correct. I have been used in times gone by to rid a great evil before it could spread and overtake. If that is what you would have me do again, that is what we shall do.
Vertharitas will think for a very long period of time.
Could be minutes, could be hours, who knows?
It's Verti, it's months.
Yeah.
Alright, who's put we now have sat-nav?
You're welcome, Rosie.
More rum. Right, go on, Vertharitas.
He'll ask it, are you able to sense the different pieces of yourself?
I am fractured almost beyond repair. I have about as much sense as your friend who wears the goggles would. If I draw near, I could sense them as well, but so could you, from the dust, as you call it.
He'll frown a little bit and the angel Pantaleimon sent us to gather up all the shards to recreate you. Do you know of him?
But of course. He was one of those who wielded me many years ago to stop the great evil you previously spoke of.
How is it that you still wound up being fractured then?
The followers of the great evil were not happy that we had thwarted them. They took me, they blasted me apart and spread my pieces as far as they could, in hopes I would never ever be reformed and used against them and their plans again.
Do you know how many pieces are missing?
I know I am almost whole. I believe there may be 2 left. One is very far from my sight, but another is closer, somewhere within the world of Mercer itself.
Then I'll do my best to put you together.
Thank you, Vertharitas. Tell me, what do you know of the battle 5 years past?
To be honest, not an awful lot. I wasn't involved in the main fighting. I was helping those that were fleeing the fight get to safety. All I know is the vast majority of my order did not survive.
Alas, there were indeed many casualties. I fear many more shall come. And the sort of vaguely female shape holds out a white glowing hand to you. Come, let me show you, Vertharitas.
He'll just take the hand without blinking.
I will show you what it is we're fighting for. And you hold the hand. You can't feel it. You watch your hand, it takes hers. You don't feel her there. You can see her fingers close around you, but sort of your hand is warmer, a bit like when you speak to Helm, but you can't sense her feeling there. The astral plane around you goes gold and silver. All the dark swirling lights disappear, and before you start to see other colours, more natural, more muted. Colours you know from back home on Mercer. And you recognise parts of Travis. not quite as destroyed as it is nowadays. Back several years ago, before the cracks in the ground, before there was less than half of the population remaining, and you stand on the ground. You can't feel it beneath your feet, but you're level with it, just touching the grass. And you look around, and slowly, very faint noises come to you. You can't hear it fully, it's almost like a dream where everything's a bit muted, like you're in a bubble. And you look around, and there's fighting. On all sides, you're in the middle of a battlefield. Raging armies swarming on each other from all sides. You can see tieflings, you can see elves, dwarves, men, many different races, all combined on different sides. Looking up to the sky, you see a flash of white and a group of what looks like angels, similar to paladin, diving down in a sort of bomb, and a big explosion of white light in the ground. And you hear screaming and infernal and shouts and screams. You can see what looks like devils and demons and creatures crawling out of the earth in a great black shadow that's sweeping across the whole place. The sky becomes darker, and that red mist that always hangs over Trevice, keeping it that little bit darker, the way Kess likes it, to anyone who knows her, has begun to creep across the sky. It's cloudy, it's muted. There's lightning, there's hail, there's rain, all in different places. Lightning bolts shoot out of the sky. Some of them are caught by angels and hurled back. You see fire, you see flame. You can hear screaming. You can smell the blood. But it's all muted. You're not quite really there. You recognise some people who rush past you. Members of your order, who you've seen not for many, many years. Some who you knew were fallen. Some who fell in this very place. Some you vaguely remember as related to people you once knew when you watched them fighting tooth and nail, again with dark, shadowy creatures. Some are fighting humans. They look standard and basic, but they have black, shadowy eyes and froth coming out of their mouths. And they are fighting with weapons that have shadows all across them. You can't even see a blade, it's just the shape of a sword, but black, encased in shadow. And they're fighting to the very death. Many fall, many are trampled underfoot. You see cavalry, you see infantry, so much occurring. The shard silhouette of the woman leads you onwards, keeping a hold of your hand, and you move through the weaving of people, and you come to the centre of the fighting. You recognise Paladin, several other angels who look similar to him, a lot of them bloodied, crumpled, some of them fallen, some of them dead. And they are fighting a swarm of creatures, and this is where a huge black crater, which you may have seen in Trevice, you know that it came in the capital, and this was where the shadow was first rumoured to be brought out into the world, and this is where they were trying to break through and get it out. They're fighting all of these creatures, and they're being commanded by a woman. She's tall. She has long hair, she's slender, she wears a dress. It's dark, greying white with chains around her legs. She walks barefoot. She has a sort of crown upon her head. It's pointed and spiked, with various feathers and things flying off the edges. She has dark eyes and a shadowy mouth, and a big, sort of intricate corset going on. She raises her hands. She's clearly some sort of sorceress, and she's pointing in different directions, shadows and flame emanating from her hands, and you can see she starts to hover above the battlefield as well. There are hooded people around her, fighting, looking to her for instructions, and you hear them shout her name, and you hear them shout, "In the name of Earthel, for the shadow, we rise." All at once, the angels come together and take a run at this woman, who blasts many of them out of the way with shadows coming from her hands, and you hear a great rumble coming from under the ground. Fire and flame erupts from the huge crater down the middle of the earth, and more starts to split, and other craters you can see all the way off into the distance. The ones you now know are everywhere, all across the land of Trevice. You see them and flames, and you see the ground. You see some people fall into them, friends get lost, hands get let go of, and people disappear down into the abyss. And the huge crater behind Urfel, as she starts to rise up into the air, shadows start to pour out, deeper and darker than the ones above the sky. And you can hear her shouting, "He is almost risen. I am almost here." At this point, the last of the angels, including Paladin, all put their hands together in unison, and they hold on to an object. It's small, it's round, and it's bright gold, and it's shining. They all start shouting in a language you don't understand, and the item explodes in a huge blast of golden light. They fly towards Urfel, and there's a huge bang as all this gold sparks rain down from the air. As the dust settles, you hear the sounds of battle all around you start to cease. The humanoids, who had shadowy eyes, drop their weapons, most falling to the floor, dead, unconscious, or scattering into ash. The shadow that was reaching out of the ground slowly disintegrates and goes back again. The crevice in the ground remains. The flames slowly die down. Urfel herself is lying on the ground before the angels, who are all standing around her, having a discussion. There are many cultists around as well, hooded creatures who were following Urfel, who are starting to back away, uncertain of what to do. One of them runs up and an angel dispels it with a hand, without even looking behind him. The creature falls, dead. The angels split into two groups, and each take a hold of one of Urfel's arms, and they begin casting a spell. They pull on her arms and continue to do so until she is ripped in two, but she's still whole. One group of angels holds her mortal body. Her eyes are closed. She looks as if she's unconscious. She looks human. Very beautiful, very young, but human. The other angels are holding what looks like the same woman, but she's ghostly and flickering in and out. Vertharitas, I'm very sorry. Could you do me an intelligence check?
Uh-oh.
Oh boy.
I love you too, Vicky.
Fingers crossed. Yeah.
Well, fuck.
Oh no.
Did he sleep through this vision as well?
He was looking the other direction. He didn't even notice.
You're just like, where am I? Seems weird here.
Okay. You're looking at this.
Oh,
You're looking at this confused. The voice of the Aedar whispers, and you hear it. She's not whispering close to you, but you hear her over the noise of everything. You hear her. Paladin brain fart. You hear the voice of the Aedar say, "They have split her in two. A mortal form and all of her powers are separated forever. Only this way can she be kept from returning to her full power and trying once more." The angels who are holding the mortal form of the girl pick her up. One of them is Paladin, and you hear them say to the other angels, "We know the best place to hide her." And do me a perception check.
Yay, something I'm not 100% crap at.
Woo!
Only 95.
No, I said that and I jinxed it. That'll be a 10.
Okay, 10 will just do you. They're not whispering. But you don't hear a lot of what they've said, but you do hear one word. You hear pandemonium.
Ooh.
And then Paladin and the other two angels with him and the body of the mortal girl disappear. The other angels have a hold of essentially a struggling ghost girl. they turn to her and they say, "You will be forgotten. None shall follow you anymore. You will be nothing." And another piece of golden light issues from all of their hands, and the form of the girl disappears, and instead she becomes a sort of grey mass of matter that splits off into lots of different atoms and floats off into the sky. And it joins the sort of greying clouds that now hover over Trevice and have never disappeared. The angels, wounded and discouraged, hobble off. Some of them fly, and they go and aid other people who are injured on the battlefield. The voice of the Adar turns to you and says, "Sadly, this is where they made one of their greatest mistakes." And points. On the ground is the golden Adar, the round sort of essentially compass-sized thing. On the floor, forgotten, not glowing anymore. 2 cultists in hoods who'd been following Urfel creep up, grab it, and disappear off into the shadows with it. The Adar turns to you and says, "Soon, in about 5 days' time, they will have destroyed me completely. I was already broken from the fight, but they made sure I was totally unintact. They sent members of their cult to scatter me to the very corners of the world. Some of them died in the attempt. And now here we are." She squeezes your hands a little, you feel the warmth sort of between your fingers, and the world goes gold again. And then you're back in the astral plane with the dark blues and whites and swirling lights all around you.
Vertharitas thinks for a little bit and asks, "If we return to Mercer, are you able to
Say that last bit again, you cut out for me.
Yeah. He asks, "If we return to Mercer, are you able to show that to others? Or is it only here that you were able to see?"
I'm afraid I must rely upon you to recount everything you have seen.
Here.
But I can do one last thing for you, if you wish.
And what's that, noble?
I know it caused you great pain to get one of my pieces back. The one in particular that was in the heart of a clockwork girl. If you like, I could grant you audience with her soul for a couple of moments.
Oh, God.
Vertharitas currently looks guilty as all hell and say, "I do not feel that I deserve this, but if she would speak, I would not turn her words away. She deserves to be able to speak."
Then let us call her. The light Adar woman lets go of your hand and you stay floating, and pulses with light and grows to about maybe 10 foot wide and becomes just a ball of light, and then closes back together and is now sort of encased around like a golden shell. Oh my god, I love the gamers so much! Thank you for sharing that! It's literally Vertharitas. If anyone hasn't watched the gamers on YouTube, please go watch them. It's amazing, it's hilarious. They have like 3 episodes, they're beautiful, and bonus points to anyone who spots the quite obvious Vertharitas. Without horns. The golden light, the Adar, reforms not in a female shape, in a sort of cocoon, and out of it steps a sort of see-through, so very ghostly, but intact, exactly the same way you remember her, Isabella. Oh, Vertharitas! Hello.
He'll literally drop to one knee in front of her.
She sort of hovers downwards, so her head's on the same level as yours. Don't be silly, Vertharitas. There was nothing you could have done for me.
I could have done better than what was done.
Well, if we all go around thinking things like that, no one would ever get anything done. We'd all be feeling too sorry for ourselves. And she'll just sort of cup your hands with both hers, cup your face with both her hands. And her you can feel. The Adar you couldn't, but this you can feel. Like small sort of young woman's hands on your cheek.
I told you the truth of our mission cost you your life. And to make matters worse, it seems that it drew what seems like our greatest enemy's attention to yourself.
Well, perhaps some things were always unavoidable, Vertharitas. I would not have you live blaming yourself for a decision somebody else made. You have what you need now. Use it.
I will do everything in my power to make sure what you died for is achieved.
I know you will. And I'll be watching. And laughing. There are suggestions coming out of the chat of what to say to this girl.
You'll think about that for a minute.
That's okay. You're in the Astral Plane. You could think about it for a year. You'll be fine.
He sort of looks down for a minute or two and goes, I'm pretty certain some of the others would probably like to have mentioned that you made such an impression on them. They named the ship that was built by your people after you.
Oh, wow. Gosh, well, that's very lovely. I hope to tell them I appreciate the jest.
I'll tell them when I see them next.
Yes, we do need to get you back to Mercer sometime, don't we?
I'd like to go when I'm certain that's the beings that are threatening me. And he literally holds the crystal he's got in his hand up over this. I was planning to go back when they'd been convinced to negotiate rather than be childish over the fact we'd recovered it. But I cannot tell whether they're speaking or fighting back there.
I'll tell you what, Vertharitas. I'll go and have a look for you. Tell them all I said hello and goodbye. And she turns away. She sort of squeezes your cheeks a little in both her hands and kisses the top of your forehead very lightly. And she turns away to walk back into the ball of light again. And just as she reaches it, she turns back and she peers at the shard in your hand and she says, "Mine was bigger anyway." And she steps backwards and light goes around her and she's gone.
So Vertharitas will salute her as she disappears.
Alright. She disappears, and the voice of the Adar forms back into the sort of female shape and says, I have enough power left to allow her to speak to you once more. I believe she's gone to check on your world for you. So, Vertharitas the paladin, now we wait.
Vertharitas will sit and smile and go, I believe we shall.
Alright. And with that, I will stop the first episode of the recording and we will jump back to everybody in the world of Mercer. So, give me a moment to pause this one. And we'll be back in just a moment.